So maybe we'll toss this up to both of you. Like, have you guys been involved in film since you were young, or was it something you just kind of came about as you got older?
All right, I'll kick it off. When I was little, I was like, shoot, it was like 1988. So I would have been like 4 or 5. And the movie Back to the Future had come out. And my oldest brother, there's 6 kids in my family. I'm number 5 out of 6. So my oldest brother was making like sketches for the high school assemblies back in the day. And he did a sketch called Back to the Future, where he went back to the future to find out how he got so cool. And so he made this cool little video, and I was the younger version of himself. And from that moment forward, like, I got really fascinated with watching him edit and how he would splice in music and stuff. And back then, like, they didn't have computers, like you couldn't do nonlinear editing that we do now. He would shoot on a camera and then play it into a VCR and then record on another VCR. And so it was this very rudimentary editing process. And I started doing that when I was in in elementary school. And then since then, all the way through high school and college, it was sort of like a hobby. And then towards the end of high school, my senior year, I realized that I could make a living doing this, and that there was a future as a job doing that. And so from my senior year on, that was the only thing I wanted to do, was filmmaking. Did you go to film school in college? I did. I went to the University of Utah and got a film degree. It's a terrible, if you do film school, it's really my advice would be to go to a school where they actually have a good program and where you could actually meet people that are talented in film. The U of U does not have a great film program, and they don't have a lot of gear. I would actually argue that Marston went to a smaller school down south that had way better production gear for him to be able to get his hands on. But I studied English and film, and I learned way more about storytelling in English than I did in my filmmaking program.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah. What other, besides English, were there any other kind of classes you took that you felt pushed you more towards storytelling than the actual film class itself?
The other class that wasn't in the film program that I learned a lot with, and I actually got into a debate with the program about it, and they eventually they credited it towards my film degree, was photography. I took 2 or 3 photo classes in college and did a bunch in high school. And I learned way more about I actually learned way more than any film class I took. I learned how the camera actually worked in my photography classes. And so they translate very heavily from still to video and film. And because I had that experience, they were able to credit it towards the class, but at the time was not part of the film program's curriculum.
It's kind of weird to think that photography and film wouldn't be hand in hand at the time.
Yep.
What about you, Marston?
Kind of similar narrative for you, getting into film, like early stages?
I grew up like just interested in doing video production, and well, not necessarily video production, just cameras in general kind of like sparked my attention, because I remember like my parents had one of those like giant VCR cameras that like you put an entire tape into. And I was always like, what is that contraption? And it was like really was something that I was interested in. And when I was in 7th grade, I bought my first camera that was like a JVC. It was a terrible camera by today's standards, but it was like the first thing that like got me out, like filming my friends and filming things that I was kind of interested in. I wasn't editing or anything back then, but it was like cool just to like play it back and be able to like entertain people with stuff that I had shot. And then in middle school, I signed up for a journalism class that didn't really know much about, and they had the new MacBook like domes that were like colorful, like those big computers, and that was the first time I got introduced to video editing. And it was like kind of blew my mind how much you could manipulate clips and add music and sound effects and everything. And I spent the rest of that semester just like really geeking out and like figuring out, wow, this is like something that's, I don't know if it's a job or anything, but it seems like something that is at least a good hobby for a while. And then when I got to high school, I spent half of my senior year going to a tech center where they would like teach you all the different softwares and all the different ways to like all the different paths you could take in a multimedia career. And then in college, I happened to get a football scholarship to Dixie University, but they had also just started a pretty clean film program that I was really interested in. So it was almost like a 2-for-1. And I went down there and got my film degree. I really like learned a lot more outside of the classroom, and really like when I applied myself to things that were just that interested me, that I wanted to tell stories about. And then there was like I remember there was like an old school professor there that worked for like NFL Films, and he came from like a film background, and he was like, you know, a pretty I guess different I mean, the fields are different from when he was there and when I was there. And so his like production, I guess, is like student PA, like knew way more about like digital. And that was like right around the time when all that stuff was coming out. So I learned like everything I like left college with, almost from the PA, from the student assistant or whatever you call those things. And then when I got out of school, I was just like hungry and eager to work for anybody that would allow me to make videos for them. And I started doing work for like a timeshare sales company that was just terrible, not like the type of work that I would want to do, but it was stuff that would like at least got me out working and like making in some sort of a career path. And then I ended up doing a lot of work for a local racetrack. And then that's around the time I met Heber, and he'd been working for CrossFit for a little bit. And that's kind of where the beginning of like where I'd really like figured out a way to make it a career and pursue it a lot more.